friends. Welcome back to the Spooky Files. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. If this is your first episode, I'm so happy to have you. I'm your host, Mary Ellen Quigley. This is where we take a dive into the paranormal, the unexplained, the I swear I saw something, but I don't want to talk about it moments that we all have and now have a place to talk about them. Today's episode is called The Ones That Stayed with Them. These aren't stories about haunted places, cursed objects, and things like that. This is about attachments, lingering energies, ghosts that don't disappear when you move, grow up, or leave town. Sometimes they follow you because they're lost. Sometimes it's because they're familiar. And sometimes it's because they don't realize they're supposed to let go. These are the kind of hauntings that people carry with them for years before they even have words to explain what's happening. So, settle in, grab a cup of coffee, and let's get into it. Our first story is called The Thing in the Closet. And this story comes from someone who wishes to remain anonymous. They write, "Hi, Mary. When I was a kid, I was afraid of my closet. Not in the way that kids usually are because of monsters in the dark or creatures. I never imagined claws or teeth or glowing eyes. I just knew there was something there, and I didn't have the words to explain it or describe it to anyone else. I never saw it. I just knew that I didn't want to look at the closet after dark. At night, I kept my bedroom door open and the closet door shut tight. I slept facing the wall. If I rolled over and had to look toward the closet, my chest would tighten and I would have trouble breathing because I would be so terrified. The fear wasn't loud. There was nothing dramatic that happened. It was just a quiet and constant feeling of dread and of being watched. I never told my parents because I didn't want them to think I was crazy and I didn't think they would believe me anyway. Kids are expected to outgrow fears, and eventually I did. Or at least I thought I did. I got so used to the closet that I didn't worry about it at all. By the time I was in high school, I slept fine. I just knew not to look at the closet after dark and went along with life. I moved on. Until the first night of college. I moved into my dorm, unpacked my things, and went to bed exhausted. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with that same pressure in my chest. The closet door was open. I knew immediately that it was the same thing. Whatever it was that was at home in my closet had followed me to college. It was the same exact feeling, and I knew it without a doubt. I didn't sleep that night, or the next, or many nights after that. The presence followed me everywhere I lived. Dorm rooms, apartments, houses, always in the bedroom closet, always out of sight. It never spoke, never touched me, never moved objects. And it didn't have to, because no matter how hard I tried, I could always feel it lingering in the darkness. Years passed before I said anything out loud. I'm in my 30s now, and about a year or two back, I was just frustrated and angry that something from my childhood had followed me into adulthood without my consent. So one night when I was standing in the bedroom, I said, "You don't belong here anymore. You need to leave." The pressure lifted, and I slept through the night for the first time in years. I keep expecting it to come back, but so far it has not, and I hope it never does. So this person is correct in that I think it's pretty typical for most children to have a fear of a monster in the closet or a monster under the bed. That's a normal sort of childhood fear that most of us go through. But I think what makes this situation creepy is that this presence never let itself be shown. So you know there's a spirit or a ghost of some sort in the closet, but what is the spirit? What does it look like? What does it want? It doesn't talk. It doesn't do anything. It just kind of stands there, watches, and is creepy. And that is the thing that confuses me the most. I would love to understand the why behind this. It's interesting that for so many years, it has followed this person around and hasn't tried to do more to be seen. But I'm sure that whatever this is has its reasons, but for this person's sake, I hope that what they did worked and that this presence does not come back. But I have heard of similar stories to this several times in the past, especially I've came across a few on TikTok. So I would be interested to know if anyone listening to this episode has also had a similar experience. There's been quite a few that have had a ghost attach themselves and kind of move around, but usually they're more active than this. So I thought this one was unique. All right, let's move on to the second one. Story 2 is called The Smell of Cigarettes. And this one comes from David. David says, my father passed away unexpectedly. 3 weeks later, the smell started. Keep in mind that I do not smoke, but I grew up in a house of smokers, and my father was well known as a chain smoker. After his death, I was shocked when one day I smell cigarettes. Not a vague, smoky scent from something wafting in from the yard or something lingering on clothing, like if you went to a restaurant or bar. It was the exact brand he smoked for decades. Instantly recognizable. It brought me straight back to childhood. As I said, no one in my house smokes. We don't have ashtrays. And to be honest, now that I'm in my 40s, I don't really ever go to the bar. So there was no logical source for smelling cigarettes in my house, especially one that wafted as though whoever was making the smell was walking around the room. At first, it came late at night, then early mornings, always when the house was quiet. I told myself that it was just stress, memory. We had a few things of Dad's that we brought into the house after he passed, so I thought maybe the smell was coming from those. But then things started moving. A remote control left on the couch would show up on the kitchen counter. My keys would move from the table next to the door to the dining room table. A framed photo would fall off the wall without breaking, even though it was glass and falling on a hardwood floor. Just a lot of really weird things that we couldn't explain. And the smell was always the strongest as those things were happening or just after. I didn't feel afraid. I just felt frustrated. I hate to admit it, but I didn't have a great relationship with my father. And I didn't love the idea that he was lingering around my house after death. One night, after weeks of it, I finally said out loud, Dad, you're dead and you can't stay. Eventually, the smell disappeared. I still miss him, but I needed my house back. Scent is one of the strongest memory anchors we have. I remember reading an article about this many years ago. It was really interesting, and if I can find the article, I will link it below for you guys. But in this article, it talked about how your smells that you smell throughout your life are connected to memories, and those memories are connected to emotions, which is why the smell of a certain thing can make you really happy, or another kind of smell can make you really sad. And I can only imagine for David, with him having just a very complicated relationship with his father, that, you may not be thrilled that you're smelling your dad's cigarettes. And so I can understand him wanting to create a boundary there and to tell his dad to move on. So I can respect that. Now, I've heard of the cigarette smell for ghosts over the years, especially ghosts that date around certain time periods because smoking was so prevalent back then during certain decades, and you probably know which decades I'm talking about. Smelling the presence of a ghost is actually more common than you think. My family actually had a weird experience with scents when I was growing up. It's not something that we really have happen as much these days, but I remember when I was about 5 years old, my great grandmother passed away, my mother's grandmother. And she was well known in the family for wearing Avon's Roses perfume. That was her favorite perfume in the world. I don't even know if Avon still makes that perfume, but great grandma was known for wearing that. And I can remember for years after she passed away, we would at random times smell Roses perfume, and no one else in the family used that perfume. Like, it wasn't something that anyone else would be wearing that you would smell. So we always kind of like, oh, I guess great grandma is coming to see us. And what made that situation even creepier was that it would usually happen a day or two prior to there being something going on in the family. So a death or an accident or someone being sick or a baby being born. You would smell great grandma's roses, and then you knew something was coming. And it was just weird that her perfume always popped up at that time. Have you also had a smell associated with a paranormal experience? I would love to know about it. So comment below if you've also had a similar experience. And the last story, story number 3, the boy in the photo. This story is also from someone who wishes to remain anonymous. And they write, "Hi, Mary. We noticed him by accident. I know that sounds weird, but in a family photo from a birthday party, there was a boy standing just at the edge of the frame. He didn't look at the camera, he wasn't smiling. He was just there. And since it was a big party where we had neighborhood kids and friends from school, we just assumed it was someone from the neighborhood or it was a brother or sister of one of my school friends until we moved. And at another birthday party, there he was again. Different house, same boy, same position, always at the edge, never in the center, and never acknowledged. No one would be touching him. No one would be looking at him. He was just in the photo. To make things even creepier, as we started going through other photos from family events, older photos, ones from before I was born, ones that my mom and grandmother could not even remember taking, there was the boy. Not in every photo, but every once in a while, he would pop up. Same boy, same posture, always on the outer edge of the group. We have no idea who this boy is. He's not related that we know of, and we're not quite sure why he's in every single photo. My grandma likes to think that he's a relative that is just randomly popping up in family photos throughout the years. I don't know what to think, but I know it's creepy, and I don't like to take group photos anymore. So that one's interesting because at first I thought, well, maybe it's a family member that maybe you're just not paying attention to, but for that person to show up in multiple photos, same age, same posture, never growing older, just always the same little boy, that's definitely a spirit. But I have to agree with the grandmother. It's connected to the family because why else would it be in every family photo? You know what I mean? Like it has to be a family member of some sort, like maybe a family member that's passed on that just wants to still be included. I'm not sure, but I would love to see the photos. So I know you want to stay anonymous, but if you want to send me a couple photos, I would love to see the little boy that you are referring to. And that brings us to the end of episode 10 of the Spooky Files. This one was a little bit of a short one, but I loved them and I wanted to make sure I shared these stories with you. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Follow me on social media. Leave a comment because I love hearing from all of you. If you have a story you would like me to share, you can send it to thespookyfilespodcast@gmail.com or send me a message on social media. I read every single email or message, and it helps us build a community of people who don't just love a spooky story, but want a safe space to talk about the things they don't always admit out loud. Make sure to follow or subscribe so that you don't miss the next episode. If you're looking for more paranormal content, check out my other podcast, Hoosier Myths and Legends, where my sister and I talk about all things spooky from the state of Indiana. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep it spooky, my friends.